Hi there. Thank you for tuning in and for sending your questions. I'm Dr. Clelia Lima, nurse practitioner with a passion for wellness. Our topic today is very interesting: how to lose weight while you sleep. Well, you may ask, if metabolism slows down when you sleep, how do you lose weight while sleeping? So, what sleep has to do with weight? We will dig into that one, okay? So let's understand first some hormones related to weight, okay? So several hormones are related to sleep and weight control. Today we are going to focus on four of them, okay? The leptin, ghrelin, insulin, and cortisol. So your drive to eat is primarily regulated by leptin and ghrelin. They almost have the opposite effect. So how leptin works? So leptin is a hormone mainly produced by the fat cells in your intestines. Its main function is to regulate your energy balance, including to tell your brain when you are full and should stop eating. Many studies have showed that sleep deprivation relate to low levels of leptin. You see where we're going, right? So you don't receive the proper message that you had enough to eat. So this dysregulation may cause you to keep eating even when you should have stopped because you are full, but you don't get the message. Another dysfunction was caused, actually, what was interesting because some obese people, they may have the right levels of leptin, but they don't process. They don't process, they don't recognize the message. And then they don't get the signal and they, just keep eating. So this is how we see that sleep deprivation decrease your levels of leptin. So now you understand, right? If you are sleep deprived, you're not going to get the message properly from the leptin levels that are compromised. So there we see the correlation. So ghrelin is a hormone mainly produced by your gut, right there in your stomach. Ghrelin is responsible for several functions in your body, including the regulation of hunger. So many people call ghrelin the hunger hormone, and actually it increases your drive to eat. So when your levels of ghrelin is high, you get the message like, it's time to eat. So at night, ghrelin usually falls because you don't need to eat when you're sleeping, right? You shouldn't be eating when it's time to sleep. But when you don't get enough sleep, your levels of ghrelin um, are also compromised during the day. So so the sleep deprivation, several studies have shown this, that the balance is completely dysregulated, and your levels are higher during the day, is higher during the night, and it's higher during the day because it's all dysregulated by the sleep deprivation. So you may feel hungrier and less full. And also, very interesting, you may be craving for high fat and high sugary foods. So that's a bad combination, right? So you don't get the message that you are full. You don't get the message that you should stop eating, and then you don't process the message that you're not hungry, and then you seeking foods that are high in fat and sugar, Right there, you can see how your weight is not happy when you do those things, right? So the other hormone is insulin. So the insulin is produced by your pancreas. It regulates the level of sugar in your blood, and we need that, right? It helps the to store glucose in your liver as well, in your fat tissues, in your muscles. It controls your body metabolism. So the insulin in your metabolism is very, very, hand in hand. Sleep deprivation induces insulin resistance, making your sugar uncontrolled and your metabolism is lower. So, if your sugar is not processed properly into energy, it most likely is going to be stored as, you got it, fat. So, it's difficult to lose weight if your insulin is not doing its job. So there are several factors influencing the relationship of sleep and sugar regulation. And some of those factors are not well understood yet. But one thing we know, when we have a patient, I particularly, if a patient comes in overweight and needs some, help to lose weight, the first thing that we do is make sure that you have a blood work, recent blood work, so we can see how well the insulin levels and then we have the pre-diabetes right there if the sugar is not well controlled. So if the patient has insulin resistance, they need treatment before they can actually successfully lose weight. So you don't want to compromise your insulin production and proper function by not sleeping, because if you don't sleep well, most likely you're going to have the insulin dysregulated. So make sure that you remember that. The fourth hormone that we're going to be addressing today is cortisol. Cortisol is the stress hormone. You may have heard of, cortisol several times. It's produced by your adrenal glands. But, the adrenal glands are on the top of your kidneys. But it's not that simple. It's actually produced by a complex network involving your brain. More specifically, the hypothalamus and the pituitary glands. So it's a fancy name that they have, the axis, the HPA axis, the the hypothalamus pituitary gland axis. So that's complex. Gets the message, send the message to your adrenal glands, and you produce cortisol. So the cortisol receptors, you have cortisol receptors in most of your cells in your body. So they receive the cortisol according to the need. So if you are in danger, you need, cortisol so you can be A game. But many times you have the perceived danger, and that's not real. But you produce the cortisol the same way, because that's how the brain gets the message. So what happens when we have chronic stress? Chronic stress is going to make you produce more cortisol, and there is no tiger to run from. It's just, the daily perceived stress with things in your life. So producing more cortisol is going to affect the whole network of functions for the cortisol. Because if you think about, if you have a real danger, cortisol is going to shut down all the functions that are non-essentials. And it's going to concentrate in your respiratory system and your cardiovascular system and have you high energy to do what you have to do to preserve life. But when you don't have that, real danger, and you are chronically stressed, may affect your sleep. And then the sleep is dysregulated, and dysregulate your circadian rhythm, and you produce more cortisol when it should drop. Because, remember we had a talk about how the cortisol and the melatonin, they work, like, in synchrony. In the evening, when you're supposed to be sleepy and resting, your cortisol levels goes down and your melatonin goes up, right? In the morning, the melatonin goes down, so you are awake, and the cortisol levels go up, so you're ready and energetic for the day. But when you have chronic stress, you end up with this dysregulation, and your cortisol levels are high when you should be resting, and then you have insomnia. So it's like a dance, and you understand that if your cortisol levels are high, you're gonna have more craving for sugary foods and more craving for fats, and you're gonna store more fat because you're not making the energy that you should be producing. It's There is no reason for that because you don't have the danger that was perceived. So when the cortisol is activated out of control, you have the whole metabolic dysfunction. So several studies have linked sleep, stress, and the metabolism. So the excess of cortisol is linked to obesity. And it goes back to the insulin resistance that we just spoke about. So the insulin resistance, the high cortisol levels, and the sleep, they're all dysregulated, and that it's translated into overweight. So again, it's not that simple. It's not that just one causes the other, because many other factors are playing a role into this whole loop as well. So sleep is vital for a healthy life, including proper brain function. Remember that when you are asleep, you are renewing your brain cells. And when you are sleep deprived, you're more likely to have bad decisions. And some of the bad decisions include being less active, eating junk food. And actually, studies have shown that people that are sleep deprived, they eat as much as 300 calories more per day. So some studies are really, incredible to make us realize how we have to pay attention to those, integration of different hormones in our lifestyle. So for many decades, lots of studies have been done all over the world with thousands of people. And they put together the link on sleep and weight. So they have different target population and different designs. So it's hard to make one final conclusion. But overall, they show a close parallel between sleep deprivation and obesity. In the last 10 years, Americans decreased their hours of sleep. And I'm going to read for you a very interesting research. In 2010, 30% of Americans slept less than 7 hours. And 35% of Americans were obese. In 2020, 35% of Americans slept less than 7 hours. And 42% of Americans were obese. So, of course, obesity is very complex, and many factors play, a role into the obese crisis we have going on. But sleep is one of them. So, if you have to target something that is easier to control on your weight control, is your sleep, because sleeping more will help you balance your weight as well. So, as you may know, adults need 7 to 9 hours of sleep per night for optimal health. So, consistently sleeping less than 6 hours per night is related to several health issues, including hypertension, type 2 diabetes, high cholesterol, cardiovascular disease, actually all cause mortality has to do with obesity. So, it's very linked with the inflammation and metabolic disorder. So that's really a combination that we have to pay attention, because it's well established. They have a link between them. So there is a research that very recent. It was published last month. Was published in the American Medical Association, February 2022. Very, very well done research, because most of the research we have seen, they are very well controlled in laboratories, where the people being studied, they have all this very strict control where they what they eat, how many calories, and all of that. So this study, they had people in their own environment. They were at home doing their own activities, their own life. Naturally, they had all these devices to measure the fat percentage and caloric expenditure and all of that, but they were in their own environment. And the research showed that sleeping 1.2 hours more per night decreased the energy intake by 270 calories a day. So right there, you can see, whoa, so if I sleep more, most likely I'm gonna need less calorie, or at least perceive that I need less and eat less, almost 300 calories. Like, that's significant. So in that study, the people that slept, an extra, hour, 1 hour, 1.2 hours, they lost weight, because they had consumed less calories. Naturally, we want to see longer studies to see, does it translate 5 years and 10 years. But it's very interesting to see that there is a very good correlation. So if you want to control your weight and have better health, start by sleeping 7 to 9 hours per night. I know it's hard sometimes when you have so much going on in your life, many commitments. And I have patients telling me, Dr. Lima, I work in 2 jobs, I have a family, how am I going to find 7 hours to sleep every night? The thing is, we have to realize that we have to put priorities in our lives. Most of us, we can find an extra hour to sleep. You have to find your own way. But if you pay attention how you spend your time, you may be able to find this extra hour, or maybe hour and a half. I don't know how sleep deprived you may be. If you have to sleep less than 7 hours occasionally, because you were a party, or you had an emergency situation, or you have somebody sick, or whatever situation, it most likely is not going to affect your health significantly. But if you do that every day, every night, with sleep deficit, it might be significant for your health. But if you want to control your weight, make sure that you sleep more. And I know that you will find so much joy just by getting your sleep in the right track. Okay. So just a little update on the pandemic. So COVID is going down. The curve is going down in most countries, and that's really a relief and very good news. It doesn't mean that the pandemic, is over yet, but very close to, to change from pandemic to endemic. We're still going to have to deal with COVID, most likely for the long run. But now we understand more how to deal with that, right? So most countries are, good news that the cases and the hospitalization and the death rate is going down significantly. So we have molnupiravir and Paxlovid. as oral treatment available. Now it's more available in the pharmacies throughout the country. Also, the new vaccine that we should have this approval soon. The Novavax is another option for people that don't want to get the vaccine with mRNA technology. So it's another option that's good too. So if you have any issues that you want to discuss, I'm here for you. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel if you haven't done so yet. Like my videos and share with your friends, please. See you next Tuesday for our live Q&A. Keep moving towards your best self. Be healthy and be well. Bye.